This episode is brought to you by Rev1. Rev1's mission is to help entrepreneurs build great companies. As you navigate the waters of business entrepreneurship, you don't have to go it alone. A strategic partnership with Rev1 connects innovators to the talent, customers, space, and funding you need when you need it. Get started with Rev1 Startup Studio by visiting rev1ventures.com to learn more. Again, the website is rev1ventures.com. All right, guys, let's all be honest with ourselves. How many times have you needed to get an oil change, clean your car, or get a tire rotation, and you've put it off for weeks on end? We're all guilty of it. My friends over at Vaunt set out to make delayed car care a thing of the past and created the most convenient and affordable way to care for your car. All you have to do is, 1, book your service and desired pickup location. 2, drop your keys with a certified Vaunt driver who picks up your car for you. And 3, your car will be serviced and delivered back to you within 3 hours. From now on, the only thing you have to worry about is where you're going and who you're going with. Look, guys, I'm telling you, this is the future. Try out Vaunt, VOHNT.com, and use promo code 614startups for 20% off. "614 Startups Nation," welcome to another episode of the 614 Startups Podcast. My name is Elio Harmon, your host. Glad you tuned in to Columbus's #1 source of startup news and interviews. And I have another great interview with you. I have my special guest, Noah Weisblat of Klout Machine. Noah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, man. So when you emailed me, I got pretty excited about having this conversation because it's a world I haven't talked about, but it's also a world that I'm interested in, and I think is going to make for a fun industry because this is an industry that was created by a rule change. And I want to dig into that, but first I want to start with your personal and professional background. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I went to Ohio State University for school. I graduated high school in 2017, where I came to Ohio State. Started in engineering. After about a year engineering, I realized maybe it wasn't for me, maybe the classroom wasn't for me. That's when I got introduced to some folks over at the business club at Ohio State, Business Builders. So I went to a few meetings, got to learn more about entrepreneurship, building businesses, a lot of great speakers. I think you came in once while I was there, which is great. And yeah, I realized kind of going through the engineering track, it was going to take me maybe 5-6 years to graduate. Maybe it wasn't for me. And I realized I ended up learning a lot more outside of the classroom in my dorm room than I would when I was sitting in class. And I spent more and more time working on my own projects or working on Business Builders projects instead of doing my homework, instead of doing studies. So I realized that entrepreneurship might just be the thing for me. So I ended up switching my major from engineering to geography because it's one of the easiest majors at Ohio State.
Okay.
And it would let me focus more and more on building businesses. My first venture was an app I built called Circle. So it's a social media app that let you connect with anybody you wanted and let you kind of analyze your network to work with more people. And Circle was my first venture, so I knew nothing about entrepreneurship, and it did not go great. It kind of failed that first time. So I just kind of went back to the drawing board, learned a little bit more. By the time I was a junior at Ohio State, it was right about when COVID hit for the first time. And right before that, we were going to San Francisco with the Business Builders Club to do a venture startup tour. So we got to see some of the top startups in San Francisco. We got to meet with some of the CEOs and founders. It was an incredible experience. Right when we got there, actually, one of the first things they pointed out was the cruise ship from COVID that was out on the dock 50 miles or however much distance away. But yeah, I got to go over San Francisco, meet a lot of different startups, but also get closer with the people in Business Builders that I went with on the trip. And while I was there, one of the people on the trip was my friend Paul Cecil, who I think you may know as well. And we connected, and from there, I started working with him at his private equity firm with Time Manning at Blue Logic Capital. Started getting a little bit of financial experience, because that's something I hadn't had before. You can learn and you can build and you create, but getting the financials down if you're not a business or financial major is very difficult. So got a little bit of experience with that, with some real estate, and Paul introduced me to my current co-founder of Klout Machine, Samto. So from there, we just started building. This was about a year and a half out. Now this is the middle of 2020, and we kind of saw the college market as a whole and got started from there.
Yeah, now, you know, big shout out to my geographers out there. We're not saying what you do is easy, all right? But I get what you mean, right? You needed to create that room in your schedule to be able to focus on something that you felt like you were more drawn to, right? It felt like a better use of your time. It was going to provide you with the practical skills you needed to probably pursue what you wanted to pursue anyway. Let's talk about the idea behind Klout Machine now. So, and I'll let you start with after meeting your co-founder and why you guys chose to build this company and address this problem in this market.
Sure. So after meeting Samto, the first thing we saw was the market itself. So Samto actually pointed out he had done some work with a parking company he created at Ohio State when he was here. He was also an Ohio State graduate, and what he realized was that during games, the parking situation was very different. So he was basically selling parking spots at the university for different home games, and he realized that Michigan games are going to generate a lot more revenue versus a Tulane game, and kind of the nature of college football at a university, how popular it is, and how many people want to tune into it. So he saw that in about a year's time from that point, Florida would be the only state allowing college athletes to profit for the first time ever. In the past, professional athletes have profited through sport, but also through sponsorship deals. I'm sure all the listeners have seen Hulu has live sports commercials, very popular. So professional athletes have been able to do this for a very long time, but college athletes would be able to for the first time ever. And he saw that opportunity open up, and that's where we got started. So initially, what we wanted to do was a Shopify agency. We were very into the e-commerce space and saw that while we see this market is opening, we still need to figure out a way to get into it. So we started a Shopify agency where we would represent 10 to 15 college athletes over the course of their college career. We would sell their merchandise, we would build their brand for them, and we would kind of just create that person's Shopify. After speaking with a few advisors and people close to me, we realized that while this is a great idea and it's a very open market, it just wasn't something that would be worth doing with our early knowledge of the market. We've seen it a year out. There's a lot of athletes in the space, a lot of potential businesses and brands in the space, and working with 10 or 15 college athletes in a service-based business model is not sustainable. It doesn't really scale how we want it to scale. Mm-hmm. So we took a look back, we had a few more conversations, and realized one thing that kind of led us on the path towards Clout Machine. In professional sports, there's only 5,000 athletes. 5,000 athletes, each one has an agent. They're able to sit across from each other like me and you and negotiate deals and contracts for hours on end. The process can take weeks, months, doesn't matter. Each agent maybe has 10 or 15 athletes as clients, maybe 30 or 40 in extreme cases. But each agent has the time to sit together with a brand or a business or a CEO and have these conversations to determine the value of that athlete's name, image, and likeness, to determine what they can bring to the brand for sponsorship deals, dollars-wise. Mm-hmm. In college, there's 500,000 athletes. About 180,000 of those are marketable, based on numbers we've researched, scholarship numbers, things like that.
Define marketable.
Marketable, in some sense of the word, they could turn a profit by representing a brand. Some athletes...
What are some of the key metrics in marketable?
Yes, so that actually goes right into our value proposition. Do you mind if I touch on that right
Don't
now?
skip that. All right, let's hold that for later. So 180,000 of that 500,000 number is marketable. We'll deal with it when we get to the value proposition. So continue your thought.
Sure. So 180,000 are marketable, and that's too much for each one to have an agent, especially some are more marketable than others, and colleges are in very hyper-local markets. Columbus, smaller towns, South Carolina. And
Cincinnati now with the number 3 football. So the marketability of those athletes shot up, right?
Exactly.
Depending on rankings and issues like that, TV time, etc.
Exactly.
Right.
So these college athletes it changes a lot. It's very fluid, but they're in hyperlocal markets. There's about 180,000 that are marketable, And somebody needs to work with a lot of them and get them deals, because these deals aren't going to be as big as the professional athletes. Rather than 5,000 athletes doing $1 million contracts, these college athletes are going to be looking at $500, $1,000, or $2,000 deals. And rather than being over a course of a few years, they're going to be over a course of a week or 2 weeks. It's going to be an Instagram post, or they're going to come down to a car dealership and tell the audience to come join them. So there needed to be a way, a solution to get all of these athletes represented, but at the same time, be able to simulate those conversations that determine their value without sitting across the table from someone and taking hours and days and weeks to determine that. So 2 problems: someone needs to represent these athletes and someone needs to determine their value.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I like it. Very, very elegant, right? 2 sides of the market. We know businesses are interested in engaging these athletes, right, in hyper-local markets. It's no longer just the big brands that get a shot at some of these athletes. Your local car dealer, like you mentioned, maybe your local bar has a wing special. It gets endorsed by this athlete eating
Absolutely.
wings, right? They could never do that before. So very, very elegant idea on the brand side, right? Opening up the market for some of those smaller brands, and very elegant on the athletic side, right? So some people peak in college, right? And that is probably the only opportunity they're ever gonna have to monetize their athletic ability. So you're getting into a market that's hungry for what you do. How secure is this market? Because this market emerged as a result of a rule change. Are there any threats to that rule change being rolled back, or is it already out of the bag? You can't put that genie back in the bottle. There's no way athletes are going to play college sports ever again if they can't monetize their likeness.
It's a great question. So from what we understand, the genie's out of the bottle. College athletes from here on out will be profiting off their name, image, and likeness in some way or another. It's very likely that's going to continue with this trend, where they're able to work with businesses and brands and other sponsorship deals. There's other current lawsuits out there, and there are a lot with name, image, and likeness, especially in the Supreme Court, that are looking into athletes being paid by potential university type deals, being compensated for their time on the field, similar to a professional contract. But there's a lot out there. There's also TV rights deals. There's so much to dive into, but strictly from the standpoint of will college athletes be able to or not be able to profit in the future based on permanent rule changes outside of this one, no, there's not going to be changes that say athletes cannot monetize themselves.
All right, well, that's a great point. And, like the athletes in college now, we got to monetize, right? We got to say what's up to our sponsors. So we're going to pivot to a couple of words from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back to continue this very fascinating conversation with Noah and talking about the value proposition of Klout Machine. I'll see you guys in a couple minutes. Support for 614 Startups comes from Color Coded Labs. It's time for a better career in tech. Introducing Color Coded Labs, a 16-week boot camp that does more than just teach basic code. It's a program designed to help you actually get a career in tech. At Color Coded Labs, we've removed all the barriers to help you learn the skills you need to start a career you love in weeks, not years. All designed for people of color by people of color. Apply now at colorcodedlabs.com. Support for the 614 Startups podcast comes from Bernstein Private Wealth Management's Columbus-based team of professional advisors. In a world where most investment managers look alike, Bernstein Private Wealth Management has evolved into an organization like no other. Some money managers look to add value after a business is sold, but Bernstein delivers proactive advice right from the start. Whether you're eyeing the exit or you've just launched, Bernstein is committed to your financial success. If you're interested in partnering with Bernstein on your entrepreneurial journey, visit bernstein.com to learn more. Again, that website is bernstein.com to learn more. Bernstein, fully invested in better outcomes. 614 Startups Nation, welcome back to my very, very interesting conversation, the whole new world of college athletes profiting from their image and likeness. And Noah, we're going to pick up right where we left off. So let's talk about Klout Machine, the problem that you're solving, and the solution that you've developed.
Absolutely. So going back to what we talked about before the segment, we're looking at 180,000 college athletes. So a lot of them are marketable, and a lot of them don't have time, or agents don't have time to work with each one and try and negotiate deals with businesses who could very much value from the ROI that these athletes could generate for them, but agents don't have time for that size of deals with that amount of athletes. That leads us to our value proposition. So our value proposition at Clout Machine, well, like I said, we started about a year and a half before the market opened, and in that time, we needed something to do. We needed to figure out, okay, these are our two problems, how do we solve them? What we did was we figured out the value question. So the value question is, what is the value of each individual athlete, and how do you calculate that independently to determine how much they're worth for a sponsorship deal? We created our Klout Machine score. Our score looks at about 25 different data factors per athlete to determine their value at any point in the season or throughout the year for a business deal. Right now, we've already created our football Klout Machine score. Our basketball is in the works and nearly complete. But the football one is what we focused on from about August 2020 through maybe May of this year. Sole focus. The Klout Machine score is broken up into about 7 major pieces, and I won't go too far in depth into it, but what you need to know is there's a lot of different things that you can look at when you look at an athlete's marketability. The biggest things are the market piece of our Klout Machine score. So if an athlete's playing for a university like Ohio State versus if an athlete's playing for a school like Middle Tennessee. One market is clearly bigger. It's in a bigger city, or there's a lot more people that attend the school. There's different factors that go into it, but we're looking at which market is kind of better for the athlete and which one can lead to more businesses and more promotions and more interest. Another piece of it that is the sole focus from some of our competitors in the market. When people enter the space, they didn't have an answer to the value question, so they kind of made one up, and that was social media following. So what people are looking at is saying, okay, this guy or girl has 10,000 followers, this one has 8,000 followers. 10,000 followers is more valuable, which isn't true. So we look at social media following, we do include that in our score, but it's not the sole purpose of our score. The reason why is, I'll use an example here, the third piece of our score is our position value. So this looks at what happens on the field and how that translates to marketability. I'll give you an example. So after the third week of the college football season, Ohio State played Oregon. Big Ohio State fan, but with the business, you gotta look at, okay, who's gonna be the most marketable with the Clout Machine score. So after Ohio State played Oregon, Oregon won. It was a big game on national TV. Oregon upset Ohio State. 2 top 10 schools or top 25 schools at the time. And everybody was kind of zoned into that game. So the Oregon quarterback, Anthony Brown, had about 22,000 followers on social media. Meanwhile, I won't specific anybody out, but some other player we worked with had about 25,000 followers on social media at the time. When you're looking at those two players, you're thinking, okay, quarterback of a Pac-12 team that just upset the number 3 team in the country at the time, had a great game, everybody's eyes are on him, everybody's watching him. Who's more marketable, him or somebody that's on the off season for basketball right now, has about 25,000 followers and hasn't played their first game yet? So the clear answer here is the Oregon quarterback, national spotlights on him, but that goes into our position-based value. So how well does the athlete perform on the field affects their marketability. Other factors of the Clout Machine score include how far does that athlete play from their hometown. If an athlete grows up in Columbus, Ohio, and then goes on to play for the Buckeyes, everybody in the community, these local businesses already know his name. So he's going to generate a lot more marketability and attention. Conversely, our viewership value. So we look at how many people are watching around the nation, how many different households are tuned into that athlete playing, how many eyes are on that player. And then the other factor we use is our Handcatch Score. So we look at, okay, how many times is this athlete's name said throughout the game? This helps, for instance, we just were requested to do a radio ad from a packaging company in Georgia. They wanted to work with some of the Bulldogs' number one athletes in the country. And one of the factors we looked at when creating this deal is the Handcatch Score. Because if you're on the radio, it doesn't matter how many social media followers you have or how many people were watching the game. It matters kind of your name recognition. When somebody hears your voice on the radio and you say, "Hi, my name is this," how many people can recognize that name and how many people want to act on that name? So that's Handcatch. And then the last piece is our silent factor. So we can't go super specific into that, but it looks at kind of some of the intangibles. Big overtime wins, blowouts versus close games, a lot of different things. But overall, that's our Clout Machine score, and that's kind of how we determine the marketability of an athlete.
All right, so when you're sitting there and you're trying to figure this out, how much of it is like science-based? How much of it is common sense? Because a lot of it seems very common sense as you kind of whittle down. And then how much of it is like an art, right? It's intuitive. It's something that is unexpected. Because I think that's the thing about, and like the silent score, you call it, that you can't really talk about. How much of it is that science, art, intuition, and then plus a little bit of common sense when you're determining all these factors for marketability?
Yeah, so I think a good chunk of it is based off of data. Well, most of it's based off of data, but a good chunk of it is very statistical, very, you see this, you would expect it. For instance, viewership value. If you see that an athlete's getting watched by 10,000 or 20,000 households or 1 million households in the US, then you know they're going to be more marketable than somebody getting watched by 2,000 or 5,000. But other factors like you said, the Clout Machine silent factor is more intuitive. If you're looking at kind of watching football, and the reason is Clout Machine, we watch football, so our businesses and brands don't have to watch the games and don't have to really even understand football to be able to work with these athletes because of that score. If you don't understand football, you may not know that, okay, if this kicker has kicks the game-winning field goal, you may not hear his name anywhere else at all time, but he kicks the game-winning field goal, he's going to be more marketable this week and next week. Other factors like the Handcatch Score, you may not know that kind of if you hear his name over the airwaves a lot, and if he's making big plays in the performance score, that's kind of goes towards marketability. So a lot of it is kind of seems a bit obvious from common sense, but when you kind of dive in, it's
So let me ask you. You say we watch football,
Sure.
but you can't watch all the athletes. So how are you collecting all of this data? When you say watch, how is the system, Clout Machine, watching the game and then assigning scores?
Sure. So there's a lot of different methods that we use for data. There's different pieces of the score. So there's the score pieces that we can gather before the season that are right there in front of us, TV metrics, market. You're not going to see a big jump off between, like I said, in Ohio State, between a very marketable school to a non-marketable school in season. So that's some of the stuff we can generate before the season. In season, it's a lot of data analytics, a lot of things that our engineers do that I don't fully understand. But it's pulling in data, pulling in audio from games, looking at stats, and then even sometimes we're kind of creating a system where people are going to be watching the games and being able to kind of judge those games and set up what they think or how marketable they think an athlete should be, how close they feel to an athlete, if you will, after that game.
Yeah, all right. So I'm going to talk about some of the counterintuitive things that you might run into.
Sure.
So, you have your classic kind of good guy, Tom Brady endorsement, and then there's the opposite spectrum where the deal might really be with the guy who has the bad guy image. How are you accounting for things like that, right? Like, are you overscoring, giving higher scores to people who have a good image, whereas people who have a bad image but the fans love them? How are you scoring things like that?
So some of what we've done in the past to kind of counteract that is looking at social media, not necessarily followers, but kind of looking at the response from tweets and Instagram. In the past, the Twitter API, which kind of lets you look into their system, kind of created a way for you to see sentiment analysis, see how people are responding to different athletes, and other factors like that. Being very early in the college football season, in the first season where it's allowed, the score is still growing. The score is not set in stone. We want to continue to improve it. So we don't have all the metrics to be able to understand kind of dislike, like, but the base metrics where you can understand, okay, this athlete's generating a lot of positive energy on social media, and then taking it a step further where the athletes can boost their profile by saying, oh, I'm interested in social work, or I'm interested in this and that. That kind of helps go into the score as well.
But what are you hearing from the brands? We want our athletes good? Because social media metrics will tell you something different, right? The reason why all of this negative stuff bubbles to the top is because it's what people pay attention to. but that might not necessarily serve a brand's interest. Are brands kind of expressing to you, in addition to your score, which is nice? We know the quarterback from Oregon has all eyes on them for the next 2 weeks. This is also what we want. Are you hearing from the brands other attributes that they would like you to look for in brand deals that you're identifying for them?
Yes, so far we've done about 3 or 4 early big brand deals. So
can you talk about those?
yeah, sure.
Okay.
So our first deal was with a dating app called Star-Studded. It's kind of a new social media app, and they were looking to get the word out for their platform. So we worked with about 100 athletes who posted on their Instagram story saying, hey, this is my name, I'm interested in Star-Studded, come on here and match with me. So Star-Studded is a verified dating app, so you had to be verified. And the draw with athletes is, okay, we can go match with them and date them. So that was our first big deal.
I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
that's a brilliant deal. So did they come to you? Did you go to them with that idea?
They came to us with that idea.
Wow. Now, how'd they find out about you?
They found out about us through, I want to say, our social media channels.
Okay.
We've been able to kind of post athletes' scores each week and show their marketability. So they reached out to us, they saw it, and just went from there.
So is part of the silent metric a hotness factor? Because how do you get a dating app 100 people? I know, I get it. You're the whatever. But did they ask for a hotness factor for a dating app?
So they did not ask for the hotness factor.
Or you're not going to tell me, are you?
Can't speak on that.
All right. It's industry secret. I get it. All right. But I understand a deal like that. So brands may come to you with some things that they want factor in, but what it sounds like is that they're trusting your judgment.
Yep.
They're trusting that you're crunching these numbers. Now, how about the athletes and the kind of deals that they want? Because a brand might want you, but you might not necessarily want to be associated with a brand, right? So like, I might be the hottest quarterback. You might throw a $200,000 deal to endorse a porta potty, but maybe I don't want that deal. So how are you dealing with athlete representation and protecting their personal brand, even though you might have a deal that might come their way?
Yes, I mean, it's up to the athlete. We offer them the deal. We see they're a good fit based on their score, and based on that factor, we say, hey, do you want to kind of work with this brand and do X, Y, and Z, and you're worth essentially this much. This is your offer. It's kind of an accept or decline situation. For instance, if we go back to the dating app, one of the gentlemen, Jordan Castleberry, he's a football player out in Tennessee, and we sent him the deal at first, and he was like, my anniversary is coming up in 2 weeks. My girlfriend's gonna kill me if I post this. So it's kind of a here or there. We let the athletes decide if they would like to do the deal with the business, and if they accept, fantastic. We kind of make sure everything goes very smoothly, and if they decline, then we move on to offer another athlete.
All right, I love it. So let's talk about business model.
Sure.
Right. So you're solving this problem. Obviously, brands are coming to you. You're solving problems for the brands. Athletes are coming to you. Gives them a reliable way to vet deals and say yes or say no, etc. Let's talk about the business model. How does Clout Machine make money?
Yeah. So Clout Machine right now, we are building our product out. In the next month or so, we will have a fully fledged database out there with the score of every college football player in the nation, their Klout Machine score next to a profile of theirs that a business can go on and sign them up for deals.
They don't have to sign off on it. They get a score. You play college football, you get a Klout Machine score.
You play college football, you get a Klout Machine score.
Okay.
The athletes, on the other hand, can come claim their profile. We've seen about 2,500 athletes come onto Clout Machine so far since the season started. Not through the database yet, just through our website. But when the database goes up, an athlete can come on, they can claim their profile, simple click. And the business can come on, see who has claimed their profile through the athletes, see which athletes are guaranteed that if they get an offer, they're going to see it, they're going to receive it, they're going to process it, and then sign them up. When they sign them up, we then go ahead and take 10% from each side from the transaction. So from what we've seen so far in the market, it's a pretty average commission, but we don't take it for kind of the connection. We think kind of anybody can go connect an athlete with a business. And we've seen in our Instagram DMs, people reaching out to us to say, hey, I know this athlete, I know this business, let's make something happen. It doesn't work like that. We take the commission because we see the value that we provide in the Clout Machine score is so powerful to the athlete and to the business, especially to be able to continue doing deals on our platform, that they just go on there, see the athlete's score, they sign them up for the engagement. Depending on the engagement, it will cost a certain amount based on the score. and then we take that commission from the deal.
All right, so both sides of the transaction. So I get it. And 10% sounds very familiar in the sports world, right? That's what an agent would take on a deal. So you guys are not doing anything that they haven't heard of, or they can go talk to their, cousin who played professionally. They'd be like, yeah, that's a pretty good deal, right? 10%,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
That's what the market rate is. All right, so is the financial transaction happening on the platform as well, or just the connection with the engagement? How does that work? Or is that, you don't have to get into it if it's not happening on your platform.
Sure. So when the platform is released fully within the next month or so, everything will happen on the platform. So the business will propose the deal to the athlete on the platform. Actually, so that half, the business side is automated. So any business can go on Clout Machine, see thousands of athletes from Ohio State to Clemson, Notre Dame, to Utah, and sign them up for a deal based on their Clout Machine score. From that end, for the database, this first version of the product we have, we will get that deal in and we will forward that to the athlete through whatever means we have. If they've signed up already, we email, text, somehow communicate that to the athlete and propose the offer, and it goes that way. Our product, our actual product, so our V2 or V10 of product, which we look to release in the next few months, is a bit different. I can get into that in a minute, but on that product, the business will go on our platform, propose the transaction, the athlete will receive the transaction on the other end, view the business's profile, see, do I want to work with Shawarma Bite? This is how much it's worth. This is how much Clout Machine suggestion should be worth based on my score, accept or decline, receive a DocuSign, business receives a DocuSign, good to go.
All right, so and every time like Madden comes out, or every time like 2K comes out, professional athletes always have a problem with their ranking, right? Yeah. Have you gotten any initial feedback from college athletes about their Klout score, where they think their Klout score should be higher than it is?
So somewhat. We haven't fully gotten the feedback from the athletes themselves because we haven't been able to release all the Clout Machine scores out. Normally, when a Madden player is looking at it, they're like, my Madden score is 90 and this guy's Madden score is a 91. I'm much better than him. What's going on? So we haven't gotten that yet, but I suspect we will when we release our full database. What we have gotten is two things. One, fans saying, kind of rudely, this guy sucks, why is his score so high? After a poor performance by the athlete. And also athletes saying, hey, why did this guy get paid more than me to do this deal? And then that's when we explain to them the Clout Machine score is higher. So once we're able to release that database and kind of show off the scores to everybody, we suspect athletes will be checking back and forth and hopefully get a little bit of my score should be higher in there.
All right, great. So like you said, via social media is how you got the Dayton app deal. What are ways that athletes are finding you? If I hear from somebody telling me I have a score out there that might impact my ability to earn, I'm gonna go find out, who gave me this score, right? How are you finding that both athletes and businesses are typically finding you? Is it social media? Is it other channels? How are you getting the word out?
Yeah, so far we've only marketed to athletes, not businesses. We've done a lot of social media marketing with athletes. We look to do a Clout Machine Starters program, which is kind of like a referral program where athletes put Clout Machine in their bio, they refer other athletes to them, and then what we've seen is kind of the teammate locker room effect. If one guy's getting paid $100 or $500 through Clout Machine, there's 5 other of his teammates who aren't getting paid who are going to be like, I want to get paid too. So they'll come over through that. But a lot of the athlete marketing has been done through social media. We've also been able to meet with a few athletes in person and kind of have them refer their teammates. But yeah, like I said, a lot of it is social media. Teammates see that happening. They want to get in on it for the athlete side. And on the business side, yeah, we've just marketed to athletes, but businesses have seen this athlete posting. They're like, that did very well, or this athlete's kind of worked out with this business. How do I get in on this?
All right. Love it, man. You have me hooked. I'm super, super happy about booking you on the show because these are the kind of conversations I love to have. But I got to take a break, and we'll be right back after a few words from our sponsors. Thank you for hanging in with us. This is 614 Startups. Support for the 614 Startups podcast comes from Nationwide. Nationwide's mission is to protect people, businesses, and futures with extraordinary care. To help fulfill that mission, Nationwide is looking to invest its $350 million venture capital investment fund in InsurTechs that will help them create new and exciting products and solutions to meet the needs of their customers. If you're interested in partnering with Nationwide's venture capital team, visit nationwideventures.com to learn more. Again, the website is nationwideventures.com. Nationwide is on your side. Support for 614 Startups comes from the law firm of Dickinson Wright, with around 500 attorneys working from 19 offices across the U.S. and Canada. They handle all types of business transactional law, including advising privately held and venture capital-backed companies in capital raising, mergers and acquisition, and transactions involving technology, software, data, and e-commerce. Partner Alex Brown serves as outside counsel to startup companies ranging from business entity selection and formation, protection and commercialization of technology assets, conducting business online, and data security issues. For more information, visit dickinsonwright.com. 614 Startups Nation, welcome back to the 614 Startups Podcast, where I'm continuing my conversation with Noah Weisblat of Klout Machine. Noah, welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to talk about go-to-market, and then we're going to talk about the team behind Klout Machine. So wherever you want to start there, maybe talking about the team and then your go-to-market strategy.
Sure. So I'll start with the team. So there's myself. I'm COO and co-founder of Clout Machine. I handle the operations. And like I said, back in March, April of last year, it was just myself, Paul, and Samto. Samto is our CEO. He's also an Ohio State graduate. He ran the parking company at Ohio State. What's interesting about our team is everyone has some kind of relationship to the university, whether it be Ohio State or to Division I sports. So our advisor is Archie Williamson. He played Division I NCAA back in his day, and then he created his company Diversified Systems here in the Columbus area. Our president is Katrina Chambers. So Katrina has been great with us. She also played NCAA sports. She played volleyball. She's the business manager of former Buckeye legend Eddie George. So she's been a great help to the team, kind of looking at the manual side of deals, creating deals for a long time with professional athletes and seeing how that translates to college. The first time we met with her, she was like, you're automating my job, so I need to jump on board. Then we have Cam, who's our developer, who's in Atlanta right now. We have our social media folks in Cleveland and Maryland, so we're very spread out all over. And then we have a flurry of other developers as well who've joined the team somewhat recently or have been on for a while in Columbus, Cleveland, and a few other cities as well.
All right, man. So Diversified Systems, I've heard that name multiple times. I feel like I should get more familiar. So Archie, if you're out there, let's connect. I think you're building a team. Like in sports, having a great team is a big component of being successful, right? So it sounds like you have all the components in place there. Let's talk about go-to-market, right? So great idea. How have you been managing transactions now? And then how do you hope to go to market and automate a lot of the stuff that you're doing now?
Absolutely. So right now, the very first deals were very manual. The founders email the marketing folks and say, hey, we want to work with you guys. We send back a list of athletes that fit their campaign and get it set up from there. Going forward for a go-to-market, on the marketing side, it's a lot of social media. We also have a lot of domains in the sports area. So back in April, May of last year, we tabbed SECNIL.com, Big Ten NIL.com, a lot of different websites. So just putting the word out.
What is NIL?
NIL is name, image, and likeness.
Okay.
So just putting the word out about NIL, name, image, and likeness, and getting kind of traffic through there to our site. Going from currently where we are now with just kind of manual deals to database to product is the biggest part of what's next for Clout Machine. So where we are right now, like I said, it's pretty manual deals. Next is our database, where we'll release starting with football and then basketball. Football, there's scores for 15,000 athletes that will change each week, updating on our database, where a business will be able to go on, sign that athlete up for a transaction, and we'll handle all the legal, operational, financial. Next step is our actual product. So the interesting thing about our product is it goes from a business coming on our database and searching by name or by school, and the business having to find the athlete that fits their campaign, to us giving the business that the athlete that fits their campaign. So I'm sure you used Facebook ads and Instagram ads before. On our product, a business will be able to go on and say, hey, I want to work with an athlete in the Columbus area. I want to do this on November 10th through the 26th, and my budget is this much, and I want to track signups. So then we'll go ahead and match that business with a list of athletes through that portal on our platform that say, okay, these athletes fit your campaign. Business will be able to go ahead and sign one up, and the athlete will receive the deal on the other end. They can either accept or reject those deals.
So who's responsible for fulfillment? So we get it, business, athlete, you match them up, but let's say it's a radio ad, like who provides the instructions? Where does the athlete go to record it? Who deals with the fulfillment end of this transaction?
It's a good question. So right now, Clout Machine is dealing with the fulfillment. For the radio spot we mentioned for the Georgia athletes, Clout Machine's looking to get the radio kind of studio set up for the athlete. Going forward, the business will be requesting the different tangibles for those deals. So they'll say, okay, we want the athlete to say this, that, and this on their spot. And we want, or if it's a post on Instagram, we want them, this is the business collateral, or this is what the image they'll be posting. But going forward, we're going to try and find a way to automate those kind of smaller pieces, like where are they going to record at, or where are things happening. But for the most part, deals will be through social media, where the business will provide the information, athlete will post, or in-person events if it's at a car dealership, athlete will come down to the car dealership, say hello, we'll try and get a Clout Machine member out there. Yeah.
But I could see some partnership deals in the future, right? So Anchor has the ability for people to record whole podcasts on their phone. So I could see Clout Machine partnering with Anchor, which is now owned by Spotify, to have an audio recording app, right? So if you need to do a radio spot, it's just you in your dorm room. You say, hey, this is so-and-so from the Georgia Bulldogs, and this weekend I'll be at the hot dog eating contest at whatever car dealership. You know what I mean? Like, so I think a lot of these problems are probably going to be solved either by you or through some partnership where you don't have to build out a lot of these this functionality because somebody already has done that. Are you guys thinking about that fulfillment angle? Because I see that as where most of the friction is going to be.
So that's a great point. You're going to partnerships. In terms of fulfillment, yeah, we're starting to think about that. We don't have our full solution, but Anchor, yeah, it's a great suggestion. Things of that nature. The other piece of it with partnerships that I would like to talk about as well is something we're looking to do on our platform to take it a step further. So athletes are going to get paid on Clout Machine. That's a given. Businesses hopefully will come make some return on investment in Clout Machine by signing up some athletes. That's also a given. The thing is, what happens when all these athletes get paid a lot of money throughout the year? What happens to that money? So with partnerships, what we thought of when we looked at kind of potential corporate partners, we're looking at things like TurboTax or financial management or financial wellness companies that can say, okay, congratulations, you made all this money. Let's go invest it. One of the first weeks when we were doing NIL deals and we were paying a lot of athletes, one of our social media guys came up to me and was like, 15 guys have new iPhones on their that they're posting on their feed. So kind of figuring out what athletes are going to do with the money once they bring it in is important.
Yeah, or should you give them net income versus the gross in the deal and you prepay taxes for them and that's another service that they can purchase from you? Because you're going to have, like unintended consequences,
Yeah.
right? With all of these athletes now being able to monetize. All right, so then let me throw you another curveball. So you have the issue of fulfillment, you have the issue of all of this newfound income for people who might need some advice with managing it. But let's look at the dark side potential of this, where my Klout Score is going down and
Okay.
I used to be making money, right? Or I can't get my Klout Score high enough to make any money and all my teammates are making money. Are you guys thinking about Clout Machine depression for athletes? I mean, maybe that's far-fetched, but you have to think about this, right? These things are social in nature. You're scoring people and they're making money based on that score.
Yeah, so we haven't gone super in depth into what happens in those scenarios. What we're looking at is to try and combat something like that. So when our product comes out, there's going to be opportunities to see specifically how you can bring your Clout Machine score up. So rather than just kind of giving you a score and leaving you hanging out there, we're going to say, hey, if you gain X amount of followers on social media, you'll be able to improve your score. Or hey, if your team does this well, or things of that nature, showing athletes kind of a visual roadmap of how they can improve their score will hopefully take away from some of that Clout Machine depression if the score doesn't kind of fit their expectations.
All right. Yeah. Well, maybe somebody on your advising team, you can start to have conversations around that, because that's where it gets really, really interesting. Anything that's social in nature, anything that reveals some kind of score, and that score being connected to some form of value, there's the potential for that. But fascinating, absolutely fascinating conversation. So what's next for Klout Machine? How do you guys get to that go-to-market, building out this platform? How do you get there? I mean, are you raising capital? What does the roadmap look like for you?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, we have that kind of incredible engineering team. They're building out our database at the moment, so that version 1 of our product, and that will be out within the next month or so. So that's kind of a given. That's already going to happen within Clout Machine. What we need to do is kind of win over the market. So we've done a pretty good job so far from what we've seen. Within 130 days or so, we've signed up 2,500 Clout Machine athletes and then a few hundred starters, which is our referral program. We've signed up around 100 businesses, but kind of automating those deals is huge. So that is where we come to the point of, yes, so we are raising capital. We're raising a $1.5 million round on a safe note at around a $7.58 million valuation. And what that allows us to do is that allows for deployment, development, and marketing. So building out the product, automating it, and then getting the word out even further than we already have, saying, hey, we're able to A, increase your ROI for your business, and then B, for athletes, we can make you money.
Okay. Noah, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this, learning about Clout Machine and the work that you guys are doing. I think you have a very, very fascinating kind of business opportunity on your hands. So I'm going to be watching Clout Machine pretty closely. I do like to close out every episode with my one takeaway.
Sure.
And my one takeaway is a sports analogy. I mean, if you want to win, you got to put together a great team. That's what Noah has done, and that's what we're working to do here at 614 Startups. So if you're out there building a startup, team matters. Until next time, peace.